expressed in this show belong to the person expressing them. They do not purport to reflect the opinions or views of Rancher or any other entity. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Coffee and Cloud Native, and Happy New Year. This is the show that shares news and interesting content related to Kubernetes, Cloud Native, and other nifty technology. And my name is Adrian Goins. I'm thrilled to be here with you today, this year, as, I don't have any fancy New Year whatever stuff, but I'm glad that all of you made it through 2020 and the holidays and whatever, and I hope you're well rested, because here we are. If you're watching live, consider following or subscribing to the channel, and if you're watching a replay, please give the video a thumbs up so the YouTube algorithm shares it with other people. Join the free community side and the Discord server. Links are in the video description or scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Live chat happens in Discord with a bot that relays between YouTube and Twitch. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube and Twitch, you now get links. We'll talk about that in a second. So come hang out with us in Discord, though, either during the show or after. And as you'll see in a moment, that's where the total craziness happens. So very quickly, let's say hello to the people who've joined us today. Let's do a reverse scroll here. Good morning, Duck, Ian, Shipwreck. Hey, nice to see you. Good morning, up early. Peter Keach, Wojtek, Chaish, Captain Justin, Wifebot with Joker gifts. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you don't look like that. Hey, Rob, Samuel, hello. Who else we got here? James P. Steve, wow, you've been really busy at your new job. It's nice that you've got some time to join us. Great. Hey, Tim, good morning. We got a shout out for Tim coming in a second. JWL? Jewel? Okay. Discord is weird because I don't always know who is who in there, so it's people change their names. Anyway, Mladen, good morning. All right, so all of you, thank you. Let's talk really quick about everything that happened over the course of my vacation. First of all, there's a video. Some of you have already seen it, but if you haven't, there I am. It's a video on running WordPress in Kubernetes, and it's about how to properly do that using a container image that I built so that when you want to upgrade WordPress, you just upgrade the container image and ta-da, you've got your new version of WordPress. The second half of it is how to secure WordPress using polyscripting from Polyverse. We've had Polyverse on the show before, and well, I rolled them into the video. So if you have any concerns about WordPress security, it's trivial to just recompile that into something that completely stops any risk of zero-day attacks. And so I cover that in the video as well. Check it out. It's long, kind of complicated because it wasn't really a how-to. It was more like, I assume you know what you're doing, so I'm just going to show you, and then you can kind of fill in the gaps. But if any of you or enough of you want more of a step-by-step thing, maybe I can set it up as a Saturday morning live stream or something like that. Just let me know in the comments or anywhere else. Otherwise, we did a complete rewrite of all of the backend that runs the show. Thank you to Tim Ernich for building Streambot. So previously I was using Hugin, and Hugin was polling the Twitter feed once an hour and then taking all of those and actually chewing on them. So it was like, no activity and then huge activity and then no activity and then huge activity. And Tim wrote something that connects to the real-time Firehose from Twitter so that I can get content directly from that on a steady case-by-case basis. That allowed us to convert things into serverless. So now the bots are running in OpenFaaS. And I looked at Fission and I looked at Knative and I looked at Kubeless, and I decided to stay with OpenFaaS because I want to build things as containers because that makes the most sense to me. And it just turned out to be the best thing. In the rewrite, you now get to vote on the tool of the day, which we had for like 3 days on accident and everybody loved it. Well, now you'll have it as well. Also, links are now posted in live chat and in the voting channel. You'll see that I've done a bunch of changes in Discord as well. There's a new layout, there's new channels. A lot of you are already using that, but if you haven't checked out Discord in the last couple of weeks, come check it out. There's a whole bunch more stuff going on there. So live chat is still crazy, but now there's live voting, and that used to be called the A/B test. So that's where voting happens, but for those who are watching on YouTube and Twitch, I wanna make sure that you can get the links as well, so they'll be posted in both locations. The community voting on the items that we show on the show is now actually incorporated into the training of the machine learning model that curates content for the show. And all of this got moved off of my Mac here, which is where it was running before, out into my home Kubernetes cluster. So that means that Trufflebot will always be online, so you can periodically ask him for excuses about why things are or are not working. And of course, this is the first show that has all of this, even though I've been testing it for the last few days. I just pushed it all to production yesterday. So let's hope that it doesn't totally collapse. Shall we get started? The collector bots have gathered candidates for the show, and Trufflebot has scored them from 1 to 5 copies, corresponding to a 75 to 100% probability of being interesting content. He'll post them one at a time into the Discord channel, and I'll load them up. Anyone watching can rate them in Discord, and then, of course, when the final scores are shown, blah, 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 you know this part. I got to rewrite this, because I'm watching it scroll by, and it's everything I already told you. So let's just go. Noel says, for simple things, OpenFast makes sense, and others are too heavyweight. Let me actually take my face off the screen there. The main thing, so Fission, I really wanted Fission to work. I've tested Fission in their demo stuff, and I liked it. I liked its cold start. I just really liked it. But Fission wants to build stuff. And so I said, Fission build. And I sent out all the stuff to build, and nothing happened. And 15 minutes later, it was like timing out, waiting for the build environment to launch. No errors, no logging, no what didn't you like, no nothing. I played with it for a couple of hours, and I was like, you know what? If that's just not going to work, and if it's not going to tell me why it's not working, out the window it goes. Kubeless, so Knative is bound to Istio. I don't want to deploy Istio, so that was how. And I don't remember what I didn't like about Kubeless, but I played with it for a little while as well. And the thing that I like most about OpenFast is OpenFast builds containers. It's based off of containers, and I understand containers, and these things can run as containers. So the integration of containers with Kubernetes, it just makes sense. It basically becomes a controller for routing stuff to containers and starting and stopping them and scaling them up. It's like a boosted API gateway. So that's why I chose OpenFast. Let's jump over the live voting and let's see if this works. Ah, ha, ha. Did it go in the live chat as well? Oh, look at that. How amazing. Okay. The Twitter stream is interesting. Also, it's been really quiet for the last 2 weeks. So there hasn't been a lot of content coming in from any of the collector bots. I've been heavily relying on Twitter because it's got the most amount of noise. But prior to the vacation, we were getting 1,200 to 2,000 submissions a day that the collector bots would pick up. And then now we're like yesterday, I think I got 400. So yeah, here we go. So I picked things that I think are interesting, things that are connected to what I've been working on, or things that are connected to what I would like to do. So this is about how to build a CI/CD pipeline using GitLab for your website. The article itself leaves a little bit to be desired. But there was something in here that made me keep it. Did I highlight it? I think it was down at the end. Create a super duper website. No. Okay. So when I was reviewing this, there was actually something that caused me to keep it in here. It's not a very good how-to. See if we can figure this out. All right. So I use GitLab, and in fact, all of the show content is hosted on GitLab, and I currently build the cncn.io website off of GitLab. What the heck was that just came by? That was crazy. I can't see what that was. There's like something that came through in the chat that looked like noise. Okay. Why? I don't have anything highlighted. All right, so this is how to build a CI/CD pipeline using GitLab. There's something more in here. I'm sorry. We're gonna have to just move on after this. Terrible. What a terrible way to start the show. Wow, but everybody really liked it. Okay, so let's talk about it for a second then. He sets up the environment with AWS with Terraform, and the idea here is that you can use CloudFormation, S3, and GitLab CI instruction set to push all your stuff out to S3 and then invalidate a CloudFormation template so that it actually gets updated. For a static website, that's great. That's a good solution. And of course, if you're using AWS, that's a good solution. I am interested in running my own GitLab runners. GitLab will throttle you to 2,000 minutes of CI pipeline time per month. And so it's free, but it is a little bit slow. So you can run your own runners in your own cluster and do all of that. It's interesting that they use Keybase for PGP. I thought that was kind of an interesting twist. All right, let's move on. The next item is interesting. Sivo. We've had them on the show. They watch the show. Hello. Siam is a friend. He's the director of technical evangelism at Sivo now as well. This popped up, and I had not heard of this before. This has nothing to do with Sivo. Sivo is basically Kubernetes as a service. You can get your own K3s cluster, and they just manage it for you, and then you do your stuff. This goes one step further, and this turns Kubernetes as a service into pod as a service. And you pay for, this is why the previous article was up. I remember now. You're running your own runners. So over here, if you wanted to run your own GitLab runner, but you didn't have a Kubernetes infrastructure or you wanted it somewhere outside, well, you can use this service for that kind of thing. And basically you pay for pods. So it's a way to run your stuff inside of Kubernetes, a way to get auto scaling, a way to get stuff, but moving you further and further away from the Kubernetes-iness of the actual deployment. They have a bunch of stuff in their marketplace, varying prices for things. Let's look at what their actual pricing model is. They've got GPU support. Your base thing, I think, is 1/10 of a CPU core and 128 megabytes of RAM. You can scale it up from there. They give you some basic stuff. It's all in euros. For those of you who are in Europe, that probably makes sense to you. I just look at it and I'm like, it's kind of a 1-to-1 against dollars. It's a little bit more expensive. So I thought this was interesting. I know nothing about the service. I don't even know how long they've been around. I don't know where they're hosted. I guess, well, they're in Europe somewhere because they're in euros. But for GitLab runners, it might be an interesting solution, or anything else where you just need one-offs. Next, we have cybersecurity predictions for 2021. At the end of the year, everybody does their predictions for the following year, and I generally ignore them because they're garbage. This, however, is actually derived from statistics and from surveys that were conducted. And I found that to be, well, to give it a little bit more credibility than the, whatever, the great, I don't have a playing card. What was it? Johnny Carson. Those of you who are old enough to remember Johnny Carson, he had a character where he would pick up an envelope and he would hold it to his hand and he would give some answer and then he would open the envelope and the question would be really funny. That's kind of how I see the end of the year predictions that people do. Here though, let's see, I did highlight some stuff in here. So let me see if that stayed. It didn't stay. Man. My little highlighter thing doesn't always work. All right. So let's just scroll through these and I'll try and pick out the ones that I thought were the most interesting. 55% of enterprise executives plan to increase their cybersecurity budgets in 2021. 51% are adding full-time cyber staff. But out of this, 64% also expected that business revenues will decline in 2021. So even in the face of expected declining business revenues, more than half are planning to increase spending and hire full-time staff. That's pretty telling. As we know, breaches are common. I mean, SolarWinds, have you seen the disaster that has turned into over the last couple of weeks? Having security as a third or fourth tier consideration for your environment eventually costs you. Next generation IAM solutions, messaging security and network security are the three hotspots. IAM solutions, yes, especially with remote work, having the ability to control access to things in a way that is friendly. And if we scroll down a little further, they talk about, so passwordless authentication. Remember that if you make people pick 24-character random passwords, they're just going to write them on a piece of paper. So giving them the ability to use strong security, two-factor authentication, and single sign-on across all of your infrastructure actually makes it more likely that they're going to use the tools that you deploy. Security services will be the largest and fastest growing segment. Okay. The exponential increase in cybercrime, including breaches, phishing, privileged access credentials, and so on, is going to get worse. In this, I learned that the prime target for the data that people are looking to exfil, they get the most money for hospital records, for patient data. And I was like, why? Apparently it's blackmail and private information and celebrities. If you get like plastic surgery clinics or things like that, you can get a lot of private information about them. You can get up to $1,000 for medical records each versus 12 to 20 for credit card information or $100 for like 10,000 email addresses. So they're going after hospitals. A couple of weeks ago, before the show went on holiday, I had a thing, I don't remember if I talked about it or if it just went out in the tweets, about breaches against medical security, or not medical security devices, but medical devices, how they can be remotely compromised and use that to compromise the rest of the hospital network. At the time, I thought it was interesting, but I didn't think it was very practical. Apparently, it's super practical. Hospitals and medical environments are not good at keeping their stuff up to date. The rest of the article is actually talking to security people. So of course, they're saying that their products are going to become the most interesting. The takeaway from this, I think, is holy cow, cybersecurity is really important. And if you're looking to stay relevant in your skill sets, picking up some of that would be valuable. There's also stuff later on about open source being important. So that takes us into the area of like Falco that we were all starting to play with at the end of last month. Interesting stuff. Next up, I have a friend of mine who used to work at Canonical. He has nothing good to say about Juju or Charms, but I've never looked at it. And it showed up in one of the collector bots output. And I was like, operator lifecycle manager. That's a term that's showing up more and more frequently. As people are doing more stuff with operators, well, now you need something to manage your operators. So that's an OLM. Juju is an OLM. But what caught my attention and what makes me think this is something that I would be interested in playing with is that it works with Kubernetes clusters as well as with standard infrastructure, allowing you to leverage the operator pattern on VMs, LXC containers, on Kubernetes clusters, on pretty much anything. So you can now do this integration of legacy code, of current operations. You can do it all. Now it is huge and bloated, and I see a lot of people are like, about it. But as I scrolled through just their page of, first of all, I'm not going to deploy this because it's massive. And it's like, it's an all-in investment. Like you're going to drink the Juju Kool-Aid and then you're done. But the value that it appears to provide, I think, is significant for an enterprise. So multi-cloud operators integrate multiple cloud providers. They've got a big marketplace for the operators themselves. They've got HA functionality. They've got OLM as a service. They've got all this consistency. You can use the operator pattern against SaaS services like RDS or others. They use RDS and Postgres as examples. DevSecOps, so you've got security built into it. 100% Python, I like that. All of my stuff is written in Python. You can deploy operators for Windows. It just continues. And their documentation is also really good. They have this idea of a model. So it looks really well thought out. And I think for an OLM solution, if you're looking for something to manage all of the disparate nonsense going on in your environment, I mean, you can keep scrolling. I think Juju would be worth looking at. Now, what I couldn't figure out, is this an Ubuntu only solution? Probably. I mean, it's canonical, but maybe not. I don't know. It looks neat. I see a bunch of stuff going by in the chat. Did somebody call my name out? Duck calls it lock-in as a service. That's funny. Okay. We're going to go back to the voting channel where I tend to hang out. I love you guys. All of you. TiDB on KubeSphere. I talked about KubeSphere in my presentation for the Edge conference that Rancher hosted as one of the solutions for stuff. TiDB is a distributed, cluster-aware database solution that is MySQL compatible. That's what caught my attention. I tend not to pay attention to the one-off, exclusive, whatever distributed database solutions because of lock-in, exactly as Duck said. Something that's MySQL compatible and horizontally scalable, well, that could just be a drop-in for what you're using right now. So they go through, this entire article is about, he deploys it on KubeSphere, but KubeSphere is actually not the core component of it. He tells you, how you can deploy KubeSphere and even gives Rancher a shout out in here. And then talks about how to deploy TiDB and how to get multi-replica stuff going with it so that you have automatic high availability, and then how to do scaling and sharding and a bunch of other stuff. It's a good walkthrough on how to get that up and running. I still like using MySQL or MariaDB, depending on where I'm running, for my backend database solutions. I'll use Mongo for NoSQL solutions. Oh, speaking of NoSQL, the one thing I did not like about this is it introduces the term NewSQL. Okay, great. So now we have NewSQL databases. But I have some things that run on Postgres, but I've just never been able to make the switch, regardless of the value. I've been using MySQL for years and years and years, and I understand it, so it's, I can just set it up in a heartbeat. And when I need to talk to it, I know how to talk to it as well. Whereas with Postgres, I'm always like Googling, like, oh, how do you connect to the schema, the whatever. NewSQL is less than SQL++. Thank you, Nuno. So yeah, so there you go. How to on deploying TiDB. Let's go back and vote on that. We got time for one more, maybe? Oh, this one's easy. It's actually not this. It's this, sort of. We've had external secret operator on here before. This allows you to fetch secrets from cloud services and inject them into Kubernetes. It's relatively new, and it only has support for AWS. Yeah, AWS Secrets Manager or AWS SSM. However, it's not in their documentation yet, but as of a few days ago, they now support Azure Key Vault. So if you were interested in this before, but unable to deploy it because you're using Azure, now you can. That's it for the A/B test, giving us an average rating of 4 coffees for that segment of today's show. And now we move on to Tool of the Day. Ha ha ha. Today's tool of the day is cloudquery. Cloudquery doesn't really have a lot that I can tell you what it does. I was hoping that they would have like some cool screenshotty things or whatever. Cloudquery allows you to, well, it models your entire cloud infrastructure as database tables, allowing you to run SQL queries against it, which is wonderful if you need to do things like figure out what's what and what's where and what does it cost and why is it running. Instead of going off and trying to dig through all of that, currently has support for AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. Really? They support DigitalOcean? I think that's a lie. Okta and AWS again, because supporting AWS twice is more fun than supporting it once. Yeah, so it renders tables of your cloud infrastructure, and then you can run SQL queries against it. It's basically it. Neat. So compliance, security, cost challenges, so on and so forth. The reason I was confused about DigitalOcean is I thought, when I was looking at it this morning, I was looking specifically for DigitalOcean because that's where my stuff is running, and I didn't see it. But whatever. So there you go. cloudquery, model your stuff. Oh wow, that went way too fast. I still have 4 minutes left in the show. What are we gonna do? Okay, WifeBot just gave me something to talk about. So yeah, the theme of this month is going to be backups. The theme of last month was policy, and this month we're going to do backups. The reason that we're going to do backups is because I totally deleted WifeBot's website on accident. But it's okay. It has a happy ending. I didn't die, as you can tell. Therefore, I was able to recover the content. When I was working with the WordPress container for Polyverse, I had done lots of testing with it, and then I rolled it out for WifeBot's WordPress site, and it failed. And I was like, oh, okay, so it gave some weird error. And I went in and looked at the data. The polyscripted one takes your persistent volume, and then it copies it to another location, and then it scrambles it in that other location. So your source content is not damaged. So the scrambling failed for some reason, and I was like, oh, weird. Okay, so I went in and I rolled it back to the previous website, and I went to just check to the previous container image. I went to check it was still working, and I got the welcome to WordPress, let's do an installation screen. I was like, oh, and I went and looked, and all of the data in her persistent volume was gone. And I posted about this in the Kubernetes channel, so some of you already know, the outcome of this. Through some weird wonkiness that I never figured out exactly why, even though I told the deployment to take the persistent volume and mount it somewhere else, it combined that with the running deployment, and it took the persistent volume and it mounted it in both locations. So it was mounted over here, and it was mounted in the destination for polyscripting. So when polyscripting deleted it, it deleted the actual content, which should have never happened. I figured out where in the polyscripting Docker entry point that happened. I notified them. They have an open issue. They're going to put in some additional testing to make sure that doesn't happen. I, through sheer luck, had a copy of the data from December 5th when I did an upgrade for rolling out glue in the environment as part of the policy stuff. So I was able to recover. But yes, so backups. I looked at what to deploy. I needed to deploy something quickly. For me, that came down to choosing between Trilio and K10 by Kasten, now part of Veeam. And the thing that I could deploy fastest was K10. So that's not, I've had Trilio on before, and I think that the stuff that they're doing with Trilio Vault and 2.0 is really cool. They even quote me for saying that. I wasn't running either of them, and I needed something quick. So I'll have more stuff coming out over the course of the month, but let's spend this month and make sure that our stuff is protected. Oh, so Nuno says by sheer luck, and that the real boss was starting to take the air rifle. I was devastated. It was like I had, run over the dog or something. Like I went out, I told her, I was like, I'm so sorry, I just deleted your website. I'm so sorry. And she was super cool about it. She's like, it's a website, but it's not. It's years of her work. If you don't know her website, it's matrakin.com. It was bad. And I was like, I wonder if I have a backup, and I had zero confidence that I did, and I got lucky. Well, now I have backups of the NFS share, I got backups of the database, and we're rolling out more stuff as it goes forward. So yeah, if you are like me and have been delaying doing that sort of thing, well, this is the month to get on board with it. And with that, we can get out of here. Oh, but I don't press the outro button yet. What do I press? Oh, I press the teleprompter button. So that's all for today. Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Links to everything on the show go up on the free community side at community.cncn.io after the show ends. Community members get early access to the links, video replay, and other exclusive content. It's free to join, and this month we're going to be talking about backups. If you have something you'd like me to consider for the show, you can post it in the show suggestions channel in Discord, or ping me on Discord or Twitter, or post it in the community site, and I'll take a look. Have a great day, everyone. Keep learning. I will see you in, it still says I will see you in the new year. I'll see you in the next show. Stay caffeinative.